And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. The pick is in, and the Chicago Bulls have selected Noa Essengue. We're going to be talking about that and the fit here for the Chicago Bulls, along with what is currently going on in the NBA draft. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. So if you've not heard the news, Noa Essengue is headed to the Chicago Bulls at pick number 12. And so the Chicago Bulls did not elect to trade up. They did not elect to trade back. They went ahead and they went with Noa Essengue. And so if you're not familiar with Noa Essengue, he is a very young prospect here, and you're definitely betting on the upside. So coming in at 6'10", 200 pounds, he averaged 12.4 points, 1.4 steals, 5.3 rebounds. He shot 73% from the free throw line, 29.4% from three, and 56% from the field. And so the things to love about Noa Essengue is that this is a player that could potentially play the small forward, power forward. I think that one of the things with him is he's going to have to get some more weight. And so I think that as he fills out a little bit more, he should be able to perhaps get down there in the power forward position. And then also, too, he's going to need the added weight to take the physicality when he's going to the rim, and also, too, just defending players in the NBA. And so, that is the positional possible fits for him. I think initially he is going to be a wing for you, because when you look at his highlights, you see a player that is terrific in the transition game. I think that he is a big time athlete. He's very fluid, and I think that he fits in with what the Chicago Bulls want to do as far as transition and pace. I think that this was an excellent addition if you're looking at that, because we had heard that the Chicago Bulls were maybe looking for players that would fit the style that they're looking to run. Well, then Noa Essengue is that player there. It allows for Josh Giddey to go out, continue to have the basketball in his hands, to be a creator. You're allowing now Kobe White to settle into a role where he can focus a bit more on being a scorer, getting downhill. Hopefully he becomes a little bit better of a distributor of the basketball this season, but he at least gets a role finally that he had last season. So a current role, he stays with that, and hopefully he can grow a little bit more. And with Josh Giddey, we're hoping that, assuming that the Bulls are going to go ahead and sign him, which I think that they are, then you're going to see him also take an expanded leap as well. Because remember, at the end of the season, he talked about it, saying that, hey, I did not want to step on anybody's toes, and this is the player that you're going to get next season, the player at the end of the season. And so the biggest difference there was his role expanded a little bit more, because remember, we traded off Zach LaVine and we made some changes, brought over Kevin Huerter and brought over Trey Jones and also to Zach Collins. So the team changed, and really Josh Giddey was able to kind of take a little bit more control of the team there. And so he gets a player that can run with them in transition. And I think the next thing too with Noa Essengue is defensively, you absolutely shore up a little bit more defensively here. So I know he has to get stronger, but man, just what we see with him defensively on the highlights and things like that, he seems like a player that could be a real disruptor with his length and just being so fluid. I think that he would be excellent for off the ball type of coverage. We'll see what happens with the on ball stuff. I know that, fighting over picks and the physicality, we'll see how that translates to the NBA game. But I definitely think that he has the tools to really become a real disruptor on the defensive end. And that's something that the Chicago Bulls need. And so you're banking on the fact you get a transition player and also to an instant defender. The next thing that he could really just take off in is the catch and shoot. I think that he's shown at times that he can definitely catch it and knock it down. And so, you would get a little bit more than a 3-and-D type of player there. Now he has to get better than the 29%, certainly, but I think that there are, just indications that he possibly can get to that. And so he's got to clean up his mechanics a little bit better, become a little bit more fluid and comfortable with that. But definitely the Chicago Bulls banking on the upside here. Let's see what happens. Does AK decide to maybe trade back into the first round? Because a lot of the talk around the Chicago Bulls was, I should say, about them taking a center. And so they did not take a center. They didn't go and trade up for Malawach. They didn't take Derek Queen, who went the pick after, which we're going to talk about that in a moment. And they most certainly didn't take Thomas Sorber or Asa Newell. So we'll see what happens if the Bulls elect to go and get a center, because I do think that that is something that is really of need for the Chicago Bulls, is that they need to find a way to get a center and to get a path at the center position, because Zach Collins going to be coming into a contract year or an expiring deal. Then you have Vooch, who is on an expiring deal. Doesn't seem like the team is going to really move forward with Jalen Smith. We'll see what happens. I think it's very interesting how his playing time really diminished there towards the end of the season. And so I wonder, does Billy Donovan, does the franchise really trust him as possibly being a starter for this Chicago Bulls team? And so, that would just say to me that you have to address the front court. And so we'll see what happens with that. But once again, Noa Essengue will be with the Chicago Bulls. And when you look at the roster fit, I think that he works just fine with Matas Buzelis. I don't think that it's going to be a situation where they're going to get in the way of each other. And I actually think that Matas Buzelis is set to really expand his game a little bit more this upcoming season. I do expect for hopefully Billy Donovan to run some plays for Matas Buzelis and let him be showcased a little bit more, because I do think that if you give him the ability to get to spots to knock down jump shots, he definitely can do that. I think he certainly showed that he has the handle. He can definitely hit a three-point shot. And I've said it before, his form, his mechanics are not broke. And so hopefully he was able to expand on that. A lot of people talking about just the type of weight that he's put on, the added strength. And so I think that Noa Essengue is going to hopefully take that same type of path. Now, I do love what he had to say after he got drafted, saying that he is going to give the Bulls everything that he has. I love to hear that initially, because if you give me a player that wants to get it done, has the will like that, I feel like the skills will come along here. So I'm rooting for Noa Essengue. I hope that this does work out, but I do think that the Chicago Bulls will have to get a center here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's briefly just jump over here to see what else is going on in the NBA draft. And so, like I just mentioned here earlier, Derek Queen did go the pick after at pick 13. Carter Bryant came off the board, then Thomas Sorber. So all the players that we had just been talking about, all off of the board here. And then you now have Yang Hassan, a center that went off the board. And so essentially you have a ton of front court players that went after Noa Essengue. And so hopefully this is not anything that really bites the Bulls later on, is the fact that they did not take a center. But let's see what happens if they elect to really jump back in here and get a center, guys. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you're thinking about Noa Essengue. Are you okay with this pick? Do you feel like that, yes, this is the pick that the Bulls needed? You're going to feel fine with them as long as they go out there and take care of business here in the second round, perhaps get a center, or do you think that they need to get a guard? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And so look, as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.